The new year is upon us. Have Chelsea learned what it takes to be a consistent winning team in the Premier League? Only time will tell, but to close out the 2023 year, they were able to get a 3-2 win versus Luton Town. Let's get into it.
And blue is the colour. Essien! Drogba! Lampard! That could be the championship!
Greetings! Welcome back to Couch Critic with me, Dennis P, for what is your Chelsea match review, or more specifically, a tactical synopsis of Chelsea's performance against Luton Town. But before I get into all that, you guys already know we need you. We need you to hit that like button. We need you to hit that subscribe button. We need you to hit that bell notification button. We're getting into 2024 right now. We need to get reattached to that algorithm, get ourselves in front of as many people as possible, and make sure that we're growing this channel. It'll help me and it'll help my sponsors who go by the name of Major League Socks. And fellas, if you ever want to walk in the footsteps of greatness, you know, you just hit them up. The link will be in the description. Okay, a lot to get into. I was unable to do any of the videos in the past just because I was away with my family in New York for the Christmas season. And, you know, time with the fam means time away from the other fam. So, fortunately, I wasn't able to do any videos to recap the matches against the Wolves and again against Crystal Palace, which I know I thought there were some good things to take away from both of those games. But, you know, one was a win, one is a loss. In this particular match against Luton Town, we did see Chelsea return to winning ways again, follow up from the Crystal Palace performance with a decent performance against Luton Town. You know, obviously Luton Town are a very difficult squad to play against. They like to put in the whipping the crosses and whatnot. So what we're going to do in this match review is we're going to look at areas where Chelsea need to improve. We're going to be looking at areas where we thought, you know, Chelsea could have been able to be more effective against Luton Town. So what we're going to do with this video is we're just basically going to be looking at areas in which, in this game against Luton Town, where I thought Chelsea could have been a lot better. Obviously, we did win the game. We did control the match for a good 80 minutes of the game. It was just one and two instances where Chelsea were undone. Obviously, set pieces, a lot of crosses coming in from wide areas and whatnot. We're going to be looking at that. We're going to be looking at Chelsea's distribution, long ball distribution, and their play that is has been a little bit more direct the last little while. We're going to be looking at those areas and where we can improve in those particular instances, and also look towards 2024, what we can hope for going into the new year. Okay, it's important to note that obviously Chelsea were navigating a very difficult period of the season. Obviously the Christmas period is one that's very frenetic. You're asking a lot of a very small squad, you know, 3 matches in 6 days. And I say that to say this, basically Chelsea were, you know, I thought over the course of the Christmas period, the holiday season, were quite decent in finding ways to win games, to stay in matches, finding ways to, you know, just basically get it over the line, you know, and show a little bit of resiliency, in particular the Crystal Palace game, and of course against Luton Town. Obviously, when you're playing 3 matches in 6 days, you expect the squad to be tired, you expect them not to have the same sort of energy and verve that you would have, you know, at the beginning of the season, for instance, even in mid-season. It's because there's a lot of matches on the legs, and for young teams, you know, that don't have the experience to see themselves through these types of situations, you might see a little bit of lapse in judgment, a lapse in, you know, just energy levels and whatnot. And I think that was very much evident against Luton Town in the latter stages. But again, even to that, I still felt like the game against Luton Town was basically down to the fact that Chelsea were playing 3 matches in 6 days, and the things that we were successful at doing, you know, pressing high, you know, putting a lot of pressure on their back line, you know, working through them, playing out from the back and like building our attacks effectively, first phase, second phase, third, doing that effectively well. We only really saw that in the first half, and then as the game wore on, the team got a little bit more fatigued. You started seeing Chelsea going a little bit more direct. And for me, that is just really down to fatigue. I really felt like our midfield was excellent in the games against Crystal Palace and against Luton Town. But again, like there's a lot of energy spent in those games in terms of like pressing, winning tackles, you know, being solid in the middle. And so to ask them again to go into this Luton Town game and be the conduits to help us play out from the back and, you know, be in control of the match for the most part, was certainly not going to be on the cards for this game. We just did not have the energy levels, and we did not have the numbers. Obviously, Enzo was just coming back from a hernia. Lavia came back into the fold against Crystal Palace, and we weren't able to see him again against Luton Town. Obviously, he's injured again, unfortunately. Caicedo has been logging a lot of minutes. The same can be said for Gallagher. So I don't think that we would have had the right complement of players. Obviously, Ugo Chukwu also out as well. We don't have the right complement of players to pursue the ball and be as relentless as we were in the first couple of games of the Christmas period. So, you expect a natural drop off there. You expect Chelsea not to be, on the front foot. And that was almost aided, like, in my opinion, by the fact that we scored an early goal. It meant that Luton Town had to be a little bit more aggressive, obviously, at home, and come out a little bit more, and played into our strengths, which is basically counterattacking as far as I'm concerned. I think that Chelsea are much better on the counterattacking scenarios. A lot of our most incisive moves in that game, especially in the first half, came in counterattack, where Chelsea were just very, very good at, cutting through Luton Town's press and getting into scenarios where you see Jackson drop deep, collect the ball in the middle areas of the pitch, turn and run at them, and find some decent passes as well. I thought that Chelsea were excellent in the first half in their build-up phase when they were counterattacking Luton Town, and also in transitions as well. There was a lot of very good combination play on the left flank as well as the right flank, but more towards the left flank. I thought that Jackson, Colwill, and Caicedo were also very good at linking up, and when obviously when Gallagher came over to help on that side a little bit more, give us a little bit more of an overload on that side, and it allowed for Chelsea to build attacks effectively and quickly. But clearly, one of the things that Chelsea need to work on going into 2024 is their ability to play more direct. If we're looking for a plan B, if our plan A is to play out from the back and and just stitch through attacking moves, work through teams and play out effectively with our midfield and whatnot, we certainly need that plan B, the more direct attacking route, to be a lot more effective than we saw against Luton Town. Like, I'm talking way more effective. It felt to me like every time Chelsea tried to go long, play a little bit more direct, whether it was to Jackson, to Nkunku, to Broya, whoever, Cole Palmer at times, the ability to hold up the ball, to let it stick up top and then build an attack further up the pitch was just non-existent for a couple of reasons. Number one, we don't have the strength to hold up the ball effectively. I thought that Jackson did an okay job on getting on the turn when he was coming into the half spaces on those long distributions and turning and getting into the defense. But in terms of like holding up the ball and being able to ward off a defender and then lay it off to one of the midfielders, I felt like that we were really, really poor in that regard. Not just Jackson, but obviously, Broja, who hasn't really been giving us any meaningful minutes for, I can't remember a game where I felt like Broja's given us meaningful minutes, but that's another argument for another day. And then if you're not going to win the first ball, if you're not going to be able to control the first ball, then you need the energy level from the midfield to win the second ball. Whoever's coming on, it just felt like we were just always 1, 2, 3 steps slow to get to the second balls as well. So in the second half in particular, it just felt like every time we went long, the ball was just coming right back to us. And that is a couple things. It's not just, the energy levels in the midfield, but I think it's also the distribution from the keeper. I thought that Petrovic wasn't very good at finding the soft areas of their press when he went long. He often overkicked and we got it turned over, or when he's looking for that little 35-40 yard pass out to the flanks to either Colwill or Gusto, very often he overhit those passes. So I think that we have to be cognizant of his distribution. I don't know if he's able to, pick that very crucial, 35-40 yard pass to bypass the first wave of their press and get us playing football. I'm not sure if he's very accurate in that. And if we're going to go long and we don't have a target man capable of holding up the ball and bringing others into the play, then that's just another wasted possession. I felt like that was very prevalent in the first half. Clearly there was a problem with Chelsea trying to find a way to get on the front foot and build attacks in the second half of that game. And as a result of that, it allowed Luton to get into the game. It allowed Luton to find their feet. Late on, obviously, we're talking about their first shot on target was maybe at the 78th minute mark, which meant that, at that point, Chelsea was already up 3-0 and very much in control, like ringing in the subs. You saw Enzo come on. You saw, just Nkunku come on as well. And we were already well in control of the game at this point. So, I was actually thinking the game was done and buried. I was thinking maybe we'd go 4-0. But, because we weren't very good at making the ball stick up top, and we weren't very good at, being connective and finding that connectivity in the final third, those turnovers proved to be quite costly, and it allowed Luton to find their foothold in the match. Like on more than a couple occasions when Chelsea went long, and then, or even when Chelsea had possession and worked it into the final third, a turnover was always what led to, Luton breaking and getting into scenarios where they are most effective. Obviously, their entire game plan was predicated on, getting the ball out to their wide men, whether it be Chung or obviously Doughty, who's obviously very, very good at making those crosses from the left flank there, and just whipping in crosses and hoping for the best. And to the credit of Chelsea, I thought that we did an excellent job of defending, the box when those crosses came in. There's only really a couple instances where I felt like we were threatened, but because we were so compact in the middle areas, and our midfielders did a good job. I'm talking about Caicedo, Gallagher at times, did really good jobs at falling in and taking that second wave and the cross and snuffing out the danger there. I felt that we handled that to a large extent. Obviously, Disasi, and a big shout for man of the match to me was Thiago Silva. Like, I know they weren't really that threatening, but the reason why they weren't that threatening is because anytime they went for, those crosses in the box, Thiago Silva was there to defend most of them and clear all the danger. So, 39, 40 years of age, to me, he's still our best defender and unrivaled. Like, there's not anyone that even comes close to him in terms of like reading the game and understanding what he needs to do to be effective in the game. So hopefully some of his intuition and understanding will rub off on some of these younger guys, because they certainly need, that sort of awareness and wherewithal when they're on the pitch. But aside from that, again, like, I don't think that Luton were very effective at, really detailing, an attack where they were hurting Chelsea. I mean, their first goal obviously came from set piece, which is something that I think Chelsea also need to work at, just identifying areas where we're soft there. Madueke, he's just not reading the flight of the ball very well, and it lands right onto the head of Ross Barkley, who is also being marked in behind by Cole Palmer, who's, just caught flat-footed on it. And, this to me is just crucial. Like, Chelsea have to be better at man marking, or marking zones, or marking areas, or judging the flight of the ball when we're dealing with set pieces. Like, far too often teams are looking at, how we defend set pieces and finding the soft spots and whatnot. And, obviously it didn't hurt us too much, because at that point Chelsea's up 3-0. They score, but they feel galvanized by the fact that they score from a set piece. And then the next instances now is what they do, which is basically, swinging crosses from out wide and hope that somebody can get on the end of it. But there are other instances where there's combination plays, swinging from left to right, right to left. And, Chelsea's back post defense was quite poor. I think for the second goal, it was coming from the right to the left. They swung it back to the back post where Gusto should have been marking, I think it was Doughty, if I'm not mistaken. Doughty crosses it into the middle, and then I think it's Adebayo was there to just smack it home. But there's threats the entire second half with the crosses coming from wide, and I don't think that has anything to do with our structure. I just think it has to do with, our fullbacks or our wide men's ability to get into wide areas and just snuff out those crosses. For the most part, those were 1v1 situations where you expect somebody like Gusto to at least deal with one or two of those. Like, I'm not saying that like you're supposed to stop every cross that comes in, but you have to be in position to at least knock away one, maybe two. I thought Colwill did a good job on their right flank at least identifying where, he could like whip his leg out and block a cross and whatnot. But same can't be said for Gusto in this game. Like, there's more than a couple of occasions where Doughty just got to the byline and threw in a cross, or, you expect, Gusto to get a little bit more tight to him and, deal with the danger there by just blocking it, and like the crosses are coming in. For the most part, they weren't very dangerous, which is fortunate because we had a nice compact system right now. But the system falls apart when you can't at least get one or two blocks in from your fullbacks, and that was the case, towards the latter stages of that game, where, it felt like, even though they weren't really threatening, it felt like Luton were trying to find their way back into that match. And it's funny because as I was watching that game, and we're, nail biter, it's 3-2 now, I'm thinking that we need somebody in that wide area that's a little bit more aggressive and isn't afraid to get touch tight to his man and, bother him. And it was only until Alfie Gilchrist came on that I felt like Chelsea were effectively snuffing out those crosses. I mean, the last real intervention in that game was Alfie's, when he basically just tackled a Doughty to the ground and won the ball and just drilled it up the pitch. That's the kind of energy and that's the kind of like man marking that you need to have in your wide areas, especially when you know that all Luton have in their arsenal is basically, swings from out wide, looking for, the odd mistake in the box for their strikers to capitalize on. Didn't happen often, but there was certainly a threat there. But for me, it's the details that really determine whether or not you're going to win and lose in the Premier League. And right now, Chelsea just aren't very good at dealing with the small, minute details that it takes to win. I'm talking about like the crosses and like having the awareness of where you need to be to block the crosses coming in. I'm talking about defending your box, knowing, when you need to be more aggressive in the box, and when, when they're coming in from corners and whatnot, judging the flight of the ball correctly. I'm talking about when there's times when you need to lay off, when you have to, recycle possession and whatnot. All of these things are small, minute things that make for all the difference when you're looking to, see out a match and whatnot. And right now, this Chelsea's not very good at that. We're just not very good at seeing out matches. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that we have a very, very young squad, a very, very young team that have the inexperience to know that these minute details are what make the difference between wins and losses, wins and draws. And further to that, I don't even think that we have a squad that understands each other's tendencies well enough yet. We're only really 4 months into this new project where, guys are coming in from all over the place and just don't understand their teammates' tendencies yet. I feel like that is another detail that needs to, we need to solidify and find, some sort of like synergy, chemistry on the pitch before we can start seeing, these smaller details become less and less of an issue. But again, it's chemistry, it's consistency, and these are the types of things that you don't get from young squads. It's part of the reason why so many people that I've talked to online and whatnot are just like, this Chelsea team need to go out and sign a veteran who can just sit in the middle of the pitch and be a boss, a dictator for us. Whether it be, a defender, whether it be a midfielder, who can just really be, an enforcer, a dictator about what it is we're trying to do and, not let performances slip. I mean, the closest thing we have to anything like that is Thiago Silva, who's 39, but, the core of this team right now is very, very young. And, not just in age, but also in their football. As much as Cole Palmer has been fantastic for us at 22 years of age, he hasn't played a lot of football. He just hasn't played a lot of football, whether it's because, he's at Man City and, he hasn't really been given the opportunities to show what he can do. Bottom line is he's not played a lot of football. The same could be said for Caicedo. As much as he's come to the Premier League and hit the ground running and has done well, he's just not played a lot of top flight football. Same for Enzo. We have a lot of guys that just have not played a lot and don't have the experience to know how to see out these big matches yet. So this is where the growing pains come in, these details that we're talking about, knowing when not to foul, knowing when, it's best to just clear the ball rather than trying to dribble out of trouble. All these little minute details that are, indicative of being a young squad are exactly what are hindering this side from reaching their, their apex, their top level. But I do think I'm going to wrap it up there. Chelsea go into 2024 with a win against Luton Town. Now, the question you have to ask is, with these last couple wins against Crystal Palace, a tough opponent, and again against Luton Town, who were very, very feisty, obviously gave Newcastle all they could wish for, all they can hope for, gave the same sort of like problems to Liverpool, almost took points from Man City. This is a very, very difficult team at home. And we were able to go there, go up 3-0, and then, not see a lapse in performance in the final minutes of that game. But for the most part, we are starting to win games that we should be winning, which is a very, very good sign. Question now is, what kind of consistency are we going to get from this younger side? Are we going to be able to reel off 4, 5, 6 games on the trot where we're winning and winning, emphatically? Are we going to be able to find some sort of form going into the new year and whatnot? And that's the most telling part. Like I said, the thing that I want most from this Chelsea team is to find a run of consistency, because I think it'll help these younger players really find their football. So, you know, we have a spell of games now in cups. Obviously, we got the FA Cup, we got the 2 legs against Middlesbrough in the Carabao Cup, and I think we have a game against Fulham, if I'm not mistaken, in the league. So there's a real opportunity there in those next 4 games to get on a real run and, you know, make 2024, the start of 2024, the start of a great thing. You know, we're starting to see some health again into the side, seeing guys coming back into the side and whatnot, and hopefully that can continue to grow in 2024. But, you know, there's things to be optimistic about. There's things that we have to be cognizant of and wary of. This is a young team, and for the most part, we can't be expecting miracles when, you know, they're still just trying to find their football and whatnot. But, you know, here's hoping that 2024 is the start of amazing things for this club. Till then, keep the blue flag flying high. Not the Chels. Happy New Year. Peace.